My name is Victoria Hayes, and on the morning of November 3rd, 2023, I stood in the kitchen of what I thought was my sanctuary and heard words that would shatter my entire world. My sister-in-law, Melissa, looked at me with those cold blue eyes and said, "Victoria, it's time you moved on. This house is too much for someone at your stage of life." I'm 69 years old, and what happened next became a journey I never imagined I'd take. If you're listening from somewhere across the world, I want you to stay with me until the very end, because this story proves that it's never too late to reclaim your power. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I simply nodded and walked upstairs to my bedroom like it was just another ordinary Friday morning. 4 months later, I was standing on a balcony in Barcelona, Spain, watching the sunrise paint the Gothic quarter in shades of amber and rose, sipping wine that cost more than Melissa's weekly shopping budget. My phone kept buzzing with calls from my nephew, Daniel. I silenced it for the 15th time that week. But let me take you back to where this all truly began. My name is Victoria Marie Hayes, though my late husband Thomas used to call me Tori when we were young and in love, and nothing at all during the years when grief consumed him. I spent 36 years as a librarian at Riverside Public Library in Charleston, South Carolina. I helped people discover worlds within books, taught children that reading was magic, and created a space where everyone felt welcome. Over those decades, thousands of people walked through those doors, and I remember so many of their faces and stories. I mention this because Melissa, my sister-in-law, once told her book club that I'd never really contributed anything meaningful to society. She said this while sitting in my sunroom, drinking tea I'd specially ordered from England, eating scones I'd baked that morning, using my mother's recipe. But let me start from the beginning, when I still believed that family meant unconditional love and loyalty. Thomas Hayes died on April 12, 2020, 3 years and 7 months before that November morning. Lung cancer stage 4, caught too late despite his doctor's appointments. We had 5 months from diagnosis to funeral. 5 months to say everything we'd left unsaid during 41 years of marriage. Thomas wasn't a perfect man. He was a complicated man who carried the weight of losing our daughter Emma, and that weight nearly crushed both of us. He worked as an architect, Hayes Design Studio, though the studio closed after Emma died because Thomas could barely get out of bed most days. Daniel, my nephew, Thomas's brother's son, was supposed to take over the business, but he chose finance instead. Thomas struggled with depression for 18 years after Emma's death. He tried medication, therapy, everything. Some days were better than others. Some years were better than others. And then the cancer came, and in a strange way, it gave him clarity. He stopped fighting his sadness and started fighting for me. "Tori," he said 4 days before he passed, his hand trembling in mine, his voice barely a whisper. "I know I wasn't the husband you deserved after we lost Emma. I disappeared into my grief and left you alone in yours. But I made sure you'll never have to depend on anyone. Everything's in the blue folder in my desk. Password is Emma's birthday. Promise me you'll live the life we always talked about. Travel. Be free. Choose yourself." I promised him, tears streaming down my face. I didn't understand what he meant about the blue folder. We'd never been wealthy, even in the good years. Medical bills and the cost of keeping our house had consumed what little savings we had. Or so I believed. Our house at 1847 Magnolia Lane is a 1930s colonial revival with 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and a wraparound porch that Thomas had restored over the years. We bought it in 1985 for $72,000. By 2020, Charleston's real estate market had exploded. Historic homes were selling for astronomical prices. Our neighborhood had transformed from quiet and modest to trendy and expensive. Young couples and investors were buying everything. Daniel came to Charleston for the funeral. He was 36 then, working as a financial analyst, married to Melissa Parker, who worked as a social media consultant and seemed to document every moment of her life online. They had 2 children, Sophie and Max, ages 8 and 6. A week after we buried Thomas, Daniel sat across from me at my dining room table. The same table where Thomas and I had shared thousands of meals, where we'd celebrated Emma's birthdays before the accident. "Aunt Vicky," he said, using the nickname he'd called me since childhood. "We need to talk about the house." "What about it, sweetheart?" I asked, still numb from grief. "The property taxes are going to be impossible on your fixed income. Uncle Thomas is gone, you're retired, and there's still a mortgage of $200,000. Thomas had always managed our finances. I'd worked and managed our home. That was how we divided responsibilities." Daniel pulled out papers, his expression serious. "I've consulted with my financial advisor and a lawyer. If we transfer the house into my name now, we can avoid significant estate taxes later. You can live here as long as you want, obviously, but this way, when the time comes, everything will be much smoother. No probate, no complications, no stress for you." I was drowning in grief. My husband of 41 years had been in the ground for 12 days. My only child had been gone for 18 years. Daniel was the closest thing to a son I had left. He'd been there for me after Emma died. He'd visited regularly. I trusted him completely. "All right," I said softly, and signed the documents he'd brought. I didn't read them carefully. I should have. I should have asked questions. But I was buried under the weight of losing Thomas, and I just wanted someone else to handle things. For the first 8 months after Thomas died, Daniel and Melissa visited once a month. They'd bring the children, and we'd have Sunday dinners. I'd make pot roast, or chicken and dumplings, or shrimp and grits. The kids would play in the garden, and for a few hours, the house would feel alive again. Then the visits became every other month, then quarterly, then only on major holidays. In February 2022, nearly 2 years after Thomas's death, Daniel called me. "Aunt Vicky, I have something to ask you, and please feel free to say no if it doesn't work for you." "Anything, honey. What do you need?" "Melissa and I are in a tight spot financially. The market's been unpredictable, and we're trying to save for a bigger house. Something in a better school district for the kids. Would it be possible for us to stay with you temporarily? Maybe 4 to 6 months, just until we get back on our feet. We'd contribute to expenses, of course." I lived alone in a 5-bedroom house. The silence had become so oppressive that some nights I left the television on in multiple rooms, just to feel less alone. "Of course," I said immediately. "Stay as long as you need. This house is too big for just me anyway. It'll be wonderful to have the children here." They moved in on March 1st, 2022, a Tuesday, exactly 1 year, 10 months, and 19 days after Thomas's death. Daniel carried in suitcases and boxes. Melissa brought 23 containers labeled things like skincare routine, content creation equipment, and wellness essentials. "This is just temporary, Victoria," Melissa said, looking around my living room with an expression I couldn't quite read. "We'll be out of your space before you know it." The changes started immediately, though so subtly I didn't recognize what was happening. First, Melissa needed good lighting for her social media work, so my sewing room became her office. My grandmother's sewing machine, the one I'd learned to sew on as a girl, went down to the basement. Then, she needed a quiet space for filming content, so the guest room became her studio. The antique bed Thomas and I had bought at an estate sale was donated. My nephew and his family were living rent-free in my house, but somehow I was the one losing space, losing pieces of my life. "Victoria," Melissa said one morning. She never called me Aunt Vicky, always Victoria in that formal, distant way. "Would you mind having your morning tea a little earlier? I do my meditation and journaling in the kitchen at 7:30, and I really need that quiet, centered energy." I'd been having my morning tea at 7:30 for 43 years. "Of course, dear," I said, and started having it at 6:30 instead. Daniel said nothing. My nephew, who used to tell me I was his favorite person in the world, who'd cried in my arms when his parents divorced, said nothing while his wife rearranged my entire life around her content creation schedule. Money was apparently very tight for them. Daniel's job was stable, but not as lucrative as he'd hoped. Something about market corrections and reduced bonuses. Melissa's social media consulting brought in unpredictable income. Some months $3,000, some months $300. "We're saving every penny, Aunt Vicky," Daniel assured me. "We're so close to our down payment goal." They contributed $500 a month for groceries and utilities. The mortgage was $3,200. Utilities averaged $520. Property taxes were $680 monthly. Insurance was $215. I was covering $4,115 of the $4,615 in monthly expenses. But they were family. Family helps family. That's what I'd always believed, what my parents had taught me, what Thomas and I had lived by. Melissa was 34 years old, tall and slim with perfectly highlighted brown hair that cost $350 every 8 weeks to maintain. She wore expensive athletic wear and carried designer handbags. I knew this because she talked about every purchase on her social media platforms. She was also apparently allergic to my cooking. Not medically allergic, just culturally opposed. I'd make shrimp and grits with cream and sharp cheddar, the way my mother taught me. I'd make chicken and dumplings that took hours to prepare. Food that had nourished my family through joy and sorrow, through Emma's childhood and Thomas's darkness. Melissa ate salads from expensive delivery services. She drank green smoothies that cost $12 each. She posted photos of acai bowls with captions like, "Nourishing my temple" and "Clean eating journey." Once, I made my famous she crab soup, a recipe that took an entire day and 4 generations of knowledge to perfect. The kind that makes your house smell like home and the Low Country. Melissa looked at it and said, "Oh, how authentic, Victoria. But I'm doing a gut health reset this month. Maybe another time." She threw away the leftovers 2 days later. Gallons of soup, hours of work, generations of love, into the trash. Daniel ate 3 bowls and said nothing about the waste. The living room became her filming space. My family photos came down, pictures of Thomas and Emma, my parents, my grandparents. In their place, a ring light, professional camera equipment, and a neutral backdrop. Visual clutter doesn't perform well on camera, Melissa explained, as if this was obvious. The algorithm favors clean, minimalist aesthetics. My daughter's face disappeared into a box in the basement, replaced by optimal content creation conditions. Dinner times changed to accommodate her posting schedule. My weekly bridge game with friends from the library was canceled because Melissa needed quiet for her evening wind-down routine. My piano practice, something I'd done every afternoon for 50 years, ended because the noise interfered with her meditation. Piece by piece, my life was being erased from my own home, but it was the small moments that cut the deepest. Like when Melissa's parents visited, and Melissa introduced me as Daniel's aunt, who we're staying with temporarily. Not family, not the woman who'd welcome them. Just the elderly relative they were temporarily inconveniencing. Or when I overheard her on the phone saying, "Yeah, we're at his aunt's place. I know it's not ideal, but it's free, and honestly she's barely here anyway. She just putters around the garden." Putters around like I was a harmless old woman with nothing better to do. Or the Sunday I made my legendary coconut cake, the one that had won the church bake-off 7 years in a row, and Melissa brought home cupcakes from a trendy bakery for dessert. Daniel ate the cupcakes and never touched my cake. "These are incredible, babe," he said to Melissa, frosting on his lips. My cake sat on the counter, untouched, until I quietly put it away. In October, 18 months into their temporary stay, I was pruning roses in my garden when I heard Melissa on a video call in the sunroom. The window was open, and her voice carried clearly. "No, seriously, it's perfect. No rent, no utilities, no real responsibilities. She cooks. Well, she tries to cook. Very heavy Southern food. But Daniel and I are saving so much money. We've almost got enough for a down payment on that house in Mount Pleasant. You know, the one with the gourmet kitchen and the marsh views. I know, right? Finally, our own space, our own aesthetic. I'm thinking very coastal modern, lots of white and light wood, none of this dark, heavy antique furniture." "When are you moving?" "Probably by next summer. His aunt isn't going anywhere. She'll be fine. There are some really nice assisted living communities around here, very well rated. Assisted living. I was 69 years old. I walked 4 miles every morning. I volunteered at the library every Tuesday and Thursday. I taught piano to 5 children from the neighborhood. I maintained a garden that had been featured in Charleston Gardens magazine." But in Melissa's mind, I was already ready to be warehoused. I stood among my roses, dirt under my fingernails, rage blooming in my chest like the flowers I'd been tending, and I made myself a promise. I would not say a single word until I had a plan. I would not react until I knew exactly what I was dealing with, and I would not let them see me coming. November 3rd, 2023, started like any other Friday. I woke at 5:30, no alarm needed after 36 years of opening the library. I made tea in the pot Thomas bought me for our 30th anniversary. I sat in the sunroom watching dawn break over my garden, and I thought about how quiet my life had become. Not peaceful quiet, empty quiet. At 7:15, I heard movement upstairs. Melissa was an early riser, committed to her morning routine that involved 20 products, a 30-minute meditation, and a green juice that smelled like grass clippings. At 7:40, she appeared in the sunroom doorway wearing a matching athleisure set that probably cost $250, hair in a perfect top knot, face already glowing from whatever serum she'd applied. She looked polished, prepared, like someone about to deliver a business presentation. I was in my robe and slippers, no makeup, hair still in its nighttime scarf. "Victoria, can we talk?" "Of course, dear. Would you like some tea?" "No, thank you. Caffeine disrupts my cortisol levels." She sat down across from me, hands folded, posture perfect. "Daniel and I have been discussing the living situation, and we think it's time to have an honest conversation." My heart knew what was coming, even before she said the words. "We're incredibly grateful for everything you've done, letting us stay here, giving us time to save. You've been very generous. But the truth is, we're not kids anymore. We need our own space to grow as a family, to create our own environment." And honestly, she paused, tilting her head with what I'm sure she thought was compassion. "At your age, this house is becoming too much for you, isn't it? The maintenance, the yard work, the stairs. It's a lot for someone in their late 60s. "I'm 69, I said quietly, "and I manage perfectly well." "I understand you think so, but Daniel and I have been researching options. There are some excellent senior living communities in the area. Magnolia Gardens has wonderful reviews. They have activities, meal services, people your own age. You'd have your own apartment, smaller and more manageable. No more worrying about repairs or landscaping or any of that burden." As if 69 was ancient. As if I should be grateful for bingo nights and early bird specials. "What happens to this house?" I asked, my voice steady, even though my hands were trembling. Melissa looked away briefly, the first crack in her rehearsed speech. "Well, technically it's in Daniel's name now, right? Has been since Uncle Thomas passed. So we were thinking this could be our forever home, our fresh start. I've already been talking to an interior designer. She has amazing ideas, very coastal contemporary, lots of white oak and natural textures. We could start renovations in January, if you can be settled somewhere by then." January. 2 months away. 20 months they'd lived here rent-free, and they were giving me 2 months to disappear. "I see," I said softly. Daniel appeared in the doorway then, right on cue, like they'd choreographed this whole scene. "Aunt Vicky?" His voice was gentle, the way you'd speak to a confused child. "Melissa's right. This is really for the best. For everyone." "For everyone," I repeated. "Yeah, you'd actually love Magnolia Gardens. We've already scheduled a tour for next week. They have these great apartments, all one level, no stairs to worry about. They do movie nights, craft classes, there's even a garden club." A garden club. Like that replaced the garden I'd cultivated for 38 years. "And honestly, Aunt Vicky, the maintenance on this house is getting out of control. The roof needs work, the plumbing is old, the foundation has some cracks. That's not stuff you should be dealing with at your age." At my age? I'd heard that phrase 3 times in 5 minutes. "The roof was inspected in June," I said calmly. "It's good for another 10 years. I had the plumbing updated 2 years ago. I have receipts. And the foundation was evaluated last spring. There are no structural issues." Daniel looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight. "Okay, but still, how much are you paying in rent?" I interrupted. "For these 20 months you've been here." Silence filled the sunroom, like a thick fog. $500 a month for groceries and utilities," I continued, my voice quiet but clear. "That's $10,000 total over 20 months. The mortgage is $3,200 monthly. Utilities are $520. Taxes are $680. Insurance is $215. That's $4,615 per month, times 20 months, which equals $92,300. You've contributed $10,000 toward $92,300 in expenses. Melissa's expression hardened, her carefully constructed compassion disappearing. We offered to help more. You said 500 was fine. You've been living here completely free while saving for your dream house in my home, the home I shared with Thomas, the home where we raised our dreams and buried our sorrows. The house that's legally mine, Daniel said, his voice harder now. And there it was, the truth beneath all the gentle language about what was best for everyone. Legally yours, I said slowly. Yes, Aunt Vicky, you signed the transfer papers, remember? After Uncle Thomas died to avoid estate taxes. I remember you saying I could live here as long as I wanted. And you can, just, look, we're adults with a family. We can't live with my aunt forever. This isn't personal. Not personal, I said, each word carefully measured. My nephew is evicting me from my home, so his wife can have a coastal contemporary aesthetic. But it's not personal. Melissa stood up. I can see you're getting emotional. Maybe we should give you some time to process this rationally. How much time? You gave me 2 months to pack up 38 years of my life and move into a senior facility. That's plenty of time, Melissa said coolly. Magnolia Gardens has immediate availability. We've already checked. I looked at Daniel. Really looked at him. Searching for the boy who used to help me bake cookies, who'd held my hand at Emma's funeral, who'd promised at Thomas's funeral that I'd never be alone. That boy was gone. In his place was a 38-year-old stranger who wanted his inheritance while I was still alive to see it taken. If you feel my words, show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel, and tell me from which city you belong so I can see how far a woman's impactful voice can reach. Help me build this community so we can bring more truthful stories for you. All right, I said quietly. They both looked relieved, like they'd been expecting a fight. All right, Daniel repeated. I'll find my own place. I'll be out by the end of December. Melissa actually smiled, genuine relief crossing her face. Oh, Victoria, thank you for being so reasonable about this. I know change is hard, especially at your age, but this really is for the best. You'll see. Will you excuse me? I said, standing up. I have some things to attend to. I walked upstairs to my bedroom, the room I'd shared with Thomas for 35 years, the room where Emma was conceived, the room where I'd held Thomas as he took his last breath. His final words echoing in my memory about making sure I'd never have to depend on anyone. I wasn't shaking, my heart wasn't racing. I felt something I hadn't felt in 3 years, absolute clarity. I walked to Thomas's desk, opened the bottom drawer, and pulled out the blue folder I hadn't touched since his funeral. I entered the password, Emma's birthday, May 15th. Inside was a letter in Thomas's handwriting, along with documents that would change everything. The letter was written on his architectural letterhead, his handwriting shaky from the medication, but unmistakably his, covering 4 pages. My dearest Tori, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I pray you've waited long enough before opening this folder. I told you the password was Emma's birthday because I knew you'd never forget our girl. May 15th, 1987, the day we became parents and our lives became complete. I need you to know something. All those years after we lost Emma, when I disappeared into my depression, when I could barely function, when I was barely a husband to you, you never left. You stayed. You held our home together. You deserved so much better than what I gave you. But in my lucid moments, in my therapy sessions, in the quiet hours when I could think clearly, I made myself a promise. I was going to make sure you'd never struggle, never depend on anyone, never be at anyone's mercy. So while you thought we were barely getting by, while you clipped coupons and worried about bills, I was building something for you. The life insurance policy, $1,050,000. Sentinel Life Policy number SL6829447. All documents are in this folder. The investment accounts, $760,000 across 4 accounts with Vanguard. Account numbers on the attached sheet. I started investing in 1995 and never stopped. The market was very good to us. My architectural pension, $52,000 per year for your lifetime. Contact Marcus Riley at the South Carolina Architects Association. He knows everything. The commercial properties, 3 buildings I bought through Hayes Property Holdings LLC. 1 office building at 2156 King Street. 1 retail space at 889 Meeting Street. one small apartment building at 445 Rutledge Avenue. Combined value approximately $600,000. Property manager is Lauren Mitchell. She's been depositing rent into a separate account. Details attached. Total, approximately $2,400,000, plus whatever the house is worth. Tori, you were married to a broken man for 18 years and a dying man for 5 months. In between, you got some good years, but not enough. This money is yours. Not Daniel's, not anyone else's. Yours. I set everything up in trusts and separate accounts because I didn't trust myself during my darkest periods. I kept it hidden because I wanted you to find it when you needed it most, when I couldn't protect you anymore. There's also a codicil to my will in here. Read it very carefully. The house transfer to Daniel had conditions, specific conditions he must honor. My final wish, take this money and live, Tori. Really live. Travel to all those places we talked about. Do something extraordinary. Don't spend another day taking care of people who should be taking care of you. I wasted 18 years lost in grief. Don't waste another moment. All my love, always and forever, Thomas. My hands shook as I read the letter 4 times, tears streaming down my face. Then I looked at the documents. Life insurance policy declaration, $1,050,000 death benefit. Beneficiary Victoria Marie Hayes. I'd thought Thomas's funeral had depleted everything. I'd thought there was nothing left but this house and my small pension from the library. There were 4 investment account statements from Vanguard, the most recent dated March 2020, 1 month before Thomas died. Account VG 4729881, $321,540. Account VG 4729882, $208,920. Account VG 4729883, $147,280. Account VG 4729884, $82,790. Total, $760,530. Attached was a note in Thomas's handwriting. Tori, Marcus Riley at the Architects Association has all the pension paperwork. $52,000 annually. Yours for life. T. At the bottom of the folder was a manila envelope, labeled Hayes Property Holdings LLC. Inside were property deeds for 3 buildings I'd never heard of, all registered to a limited liability company, with Thomas listed as owner, and me as sole beneficiary upon death. Property tax statements showed 2156 King Street office building. Assessed value, $240,000. 889 Meeting Street retail space. Assessed value, $190,000. 445 Rutledge Avenue apartment building, 6 units. Assessed value, $170,000. Total property value, $600,000. Monthly statements from a property manager named Lauren Mitchell showed rental income deposited into a business account I didn't know existed. King Street office, $3,800 monthly. Meeting Street retail, $2,900 monthly. Rutledge Avenue apartments, $5,400 monthly. Total monthly income, $12,100. For 3 years and 7 months since Thomas's death, I'd been receiving $12,100 monthly in rental income, automatically depositing into an account I'd never accessed. $12,100 times 43 months equaled $520,300, just sitting there, accumulating, waiting for me. I did the math on a piece of paper, my librarian training making neat columns. Life insurance, $1,050,000. Investment accounts, $760,530. Rental properties value, $600,000. Rental income accumulated, $520,300. Annual pension, $52,000 per year. House value, estimated at $850,000. Total liquid assets, $3,330,830. Total net worth, $4,180,830. Over $4 million. I was sitting in my bathrobe, having just been told to move into assisted living by people who thought I was helpless and broke, while I was actually a multimillionaire. They had absolutely no idea what was coming. I waited until Daniel and Melissa took the children to school and then headed to their gym routine at 9:30. Then I made 3 phone calls. The first was to Marcus Riley at the South Carolina Architects Association. "This is Victoria Hayes. My husband was Thomas Hayes." "Mrs. Hayes," Marcus's voice was warm and professional. "I've been wondering when I'd hear from you. Thomas was a brilliant architect and a good friend. I'm so sorry for your loss." "Thank you, Marcus. I just found some documents about a pension." "Yes, Thomas set that up in 2007. $52,000 annually, guaranteed for your lifetime, with a 3% cost of living increase each year. You should have been receiving payments since his death. Have the checks not been arriving?" My stomach dropped. "No, I haven't received anything." "That's very strange," he said, and I could hear him typing. "The payments have been depositing regularly. Let me pull up the account information. Can you verify your social security number?" I did, my heart pounding. More typing, then a long silence. "Mrs. Hayes, the pension payments have been going to an account ending in 8847. Is that your account?" I don't know. Can you tell me whose name is on the account?" "It's listed as a joint account, Victoria Hayes and Daniel Hayes." The room spun. "How much has been deposited total?" "Let me calculate. Payments started May 2020. That's 42 months at $52,000 annually, with the cost of living increases factored in. Total deposited is approximately $194,000. $194,000 in an account with my nephew's name on it that I'd never seen, never authorized, never even knew existed. Mrs. Hayes, are you still there?" "Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Marcus. Can I come see you today?" "I'm in the office until 6. My second call was to my bank, Coastal Trust Bank on Broad Street. "I need to speak with someone about my accounts immediately," I told the receptionist. 30 minutes later, I sat across from Patricia Simmons, a banker I'd known for 20 years. "Mrs. Hayes, what can I help you with today?" "I need to see every single account that has my name on it." She typed on her computer, her expression growing concerned. "You have your primary checking account ending in 3392, your savings account ending in 7754, and a joint account with Daniel Hayes ending in 8847. "When was that joint account opened?" More typing. "April 28, 2020, 16 days after Thomas died." "Show me everything." Patricia turned her screen toward me. "Deposits from South Carolina Architects Association Pension Fund. Monthly deposits of approximately $4,300. 42 deposits totaling $194,200. Withdrawals? None. The money just sat there, collecting, while I struggled to cover a $3,000 mortgage." "Mrs. Hayes, is something wrong?" "I didn't open this account. I didn't authorize these deposits. I didn't know it existed." Patricia's face changed immediately. "I see. Let me check the signature card right away." She pulled up another screen, then enlarged an image. "Mrs. Hayes, is this your signature?" She showed me a scanned signature card. My name was there, but the signature was wrong, too loopy, too confident, nothing like my actual handwriting. "No," I said firmly. "That is not my signature. I'm going to need you to file a fraud report, and we'll need to contact the authorities." "Not yet," I said. "But I need 3 things. First, freeze that account immediately and remove Daniel's access. Second, I need you to recommend the best estate and elder law attorney in Charleston. Third, I need to open new accounts at a different bank, accounts that only I have access to." Patricia wrote down 2 names. For the attorney, call Robert Chen at Chen & Associates. For a new bank, I'd suggest First Harbor Bank. They're excellent with estate management. Thank you, Patricia. And Patricia, this conversation stays completely confidential. Of course, Mrs. Hayes. I'm so sorry this is happening to you. My third call was to Robert Chen. His office was in a beautifully restored building on Meeting Street. I told his receptionist it was urgent, and somehow he made time to see me that afternoon. Robert Chen was a Chinese-American man in his late 50s with sharp eyes and a firm handshake. "Hayes, my assistant said this was urgent. How can I help you?" I told him everything. The house transfer, Melissa's ultimatum, the pension account, Thomas's letter, the hidden assets, all of it. Robert listened carefully, taking detailed notes, his expression growing increasingly serious. "Mrs. Hayes, let me be very direct with you. What your nephew did with that pension account, forging your signature to open a joint account, and diverting your funds without your knowledge or consent. That's financial elder abuse. In South Carolina, that's a felony. He could face criminal charges and significant prison time. I don't want to send Daniel to prison, I said. I understand your hesitation, but you need to understand your legal position. First, regarding the house transfer. You said you signed papers shortly after your husband's death? Yes, Daniel said it was for estate tax purposes. Did you read them thoroughly? I was grieving. I trusted him. Robert pulled out a legal pad. We need to obtain copies of those documents, because if the transfer was made under duress, undue influence, or false pretenses, it may be voidable under South Carolina law. Also, based on what you've told me about your husband's letter, there was a codicil to his will. I pulled the document from my purse. Robert read it, and slowly, a smile spread across his face. Mrs. Hayes, this is a conditional transfer. The house passes to Daniel only upon your death, or if you voluntarily choose to relocate and provide written consent to transfer full ownership. But, and this is crucial, the condition explicitly states that Daniel must provide you with suitable housing at his expense until such transfer is complete. The house is still legally yours to occupy. He cannot evict you. But he said it's in his name now, I protested. He either lied or doesn't understand the legal terms of the transfer. Either way, you have substantial rights. Very substantial rights. What are my options? Several. 1. You assert your right to remain in the house indefinitely. 2. You negotiate a buyout where he pays you fair market value for your interest. 3. Robert leaned forward, his eyes gleaming. You could potentially force a sale of the property. The conditional language gives you significant leverage. Can I actually do that? Mrs. Hayes, you're the victim of financial elder abuse and housing fraud. You have Thomas's clear intentions documented. Any judge in Charleston would side with you. The question isn't what you can do legally. The question is, what do you want to do? What did I want? I thought about Melissa measuring my sunroom for her coastal contemporary vision. Daniel choosing cupcakes over my coconut cake. 20 months of being erased in my own home while they saved money that was actually mine. I want to sell it, I said clearly, and I want them to have no idea what's coming until it's too late. Robert's smile was almost predatory. Then let's make a plan. That afternoon I met with Catherine Wells, the financial advisor Robert recommended. Her office had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. She was a black woman in her early 50s with an air of absolute competence. Mrs. Hayes, Robert sent over your asset summary. This is quite substantial. I didn't know any of it existed until today. All right, let's discuss strategy. You have $1,050,000 in life insurance that needs to be claimed. That's straightforward paperwork. You have $760,000 in investment accounts that are already in your name. You have $520,000 in accumulated rental income. You have an annual pension of $52,000. And you have 3 rental properties worth approximately $600,000. She pulled out a calculator. If we liquidate the rental properties, which in Charleston's current market would be very easy, and combine everything, you're looking at approximately $3,330,000 in liquid assets, plus your annual pension. At a conservative 4% withdrawal rate, that's $133,000 per year without touching principal. Add the pension, and you're at $185,000 annually. $185,000 a year. I've been living on $38,000 annually from my library pension and Social Security, stretching every dollar, while my nephew diverted funds and his wife called me a burden. What would you recommend I do? That depends entirely on what you want for your life, Mrs. Hayes. What do you want? For the first time in 3 years, I smiled a real, genuine smile. I want to move to Barcelona. Catherine didn't even blink. All right, Barcelona is expensive but absolutely manageable with your assets. Cost of living for a very comfortable lifestyle ranges from $70,000 to $90,000 annually. You could rent initially, purchase property later if you decide to stay. Let me make some calls to our international division. Over the next 5 days, while Daniel and Melissa went about their lives completely oblivious, I systematically dismantled the world they thought they controlled. Day 1, filed paperwork to claim Thomas's life insurance. $1,050,000. Met with Lauren Mitchell, the property manager, and listed all 3 rental properties for sale. Changed passwords and security questions on every account. Opened new accounts at First Harbor Bank with only my name. Transferred the accumulated rental income, $520,000. Day 2, video called with Isabella Martinez, an American expatriate living in Barcelona, who ran a relocation service for retirees. She gave me a virtual tour of an apartment, 3 bedrooms in the Gothic Quarter, balcony overlooking the plaza, €7,200 per month, about $7,800. I offered a 1-year lease paid in advance. She accepted immediately. Day 3. Contacted Maria Santos, top real estate agent in historic Charleston. Listed my house as a pocket listing, off-market, for $925,000. Target cash buyers only, fast close. Maria walked through my house and whistled. Mrs. Hayes, this house is extraordinary. We'll have offers within days. How fast could we close with a cash buyer? Perfect, I said. Make it happen. On November 8th, over breakfast, I mentioned casually to Melissa, I have a tour scheduled at Magnolia Gardens next Wednesday. Melissa looked up from her acai bowl, surprised and pleased. Oh, Victoria, that's wonderful. You're really going to love it there. Very progressive thinking. Daniel nodded. Want me to come with you, Aunt Vicky? No, sweetheart. I can handle it. I'm perfectly capable. I didn't go to Magnolia Gardens the following Wednesday. Instead, I went to a private storage facility and rented a climate-controlled unit under my name only. But I did pick up a brochure from Magnolia Gardens on my way home. That evening, I left it on the kitchen counter. Melissa picked it up immediately. This actually looks really nice, Victoria. See? Independent living, not a nursing home. You'll have so much freedom and community. Freedom in a 700-square-foot apartment with scheduled activities. Yes, I said pleasantly. It seems very nice. While Daniel and Melissa were at work or running errands, I started packing. Not everything, just the irreplaceable things. My grandmother's china and silver, photo albums spanning 5 generations, my mother's jewelry, Thomas's architectural drawings, Emma's baby clothes and artwork, books that had belonged to my parents. I moved boxes to the storage unit 4 or 5 at a time, small enough not to be noticed, systematic enough to save everything that mattered. Melissa came home one evening and looked around. Did you donate some things? The house feels lighter somehow. Just decluttering, I said. Magnolia Gardens has size restrictions, so I'm being practical. Very mature approach. On November 15th, while Daniel and Melissa took the children to a birthday party, Maria brought the first potential buyers. They were a young couple, both doctors, mid-30s. Dr. James Morrison, a surgeon, and Dr. Rachel Morrison, a pediatrician. They were expecting their first child in 4 months. This house, Rachel said, her hand on her pregnant belly, it feels like it has good energy. It has been, I said softly. Very much loved. They walked through every room, and I could see Rachel imagining their life there. How many children are you planning? She asked me. We lost our daughter when she was 12, I said. But this house knew joy before it knew sorrow. It deserves to know joy again. They offered $950,000, all cash, close by December 20th. I accept, I said immediately. Maria looked shocked. Mrs. Hayes, don't you want to? It's perfect, I interrupted. Draw up the papers. Every evening, Daniel asked about my housing search. How was Magnolia Gardens? Very nice, I said. They have a lovely garden club and a book discussion group. Did you put down a deposit yet? I'm still exploring all my options, making sure I make the right choice. I was exploring my options, just not the ones they imagined. Meanwhile, Catherine was efficiently liquidating my rental properties. The King Street office building sold November 18th for $265,000. The Meeting Street retail space sold November 20th for $215,000. The Rutledge Avenue apartment building sold November 22nd for $178,000. Total from properties, $658,000. She was also processing my life insurance claim, which cleared November 25th, $1,050,000, and transferring my investment accounts to international access platforms. By November 26th, I had $1,050,000 from life insurance, $658,000 from property sales, $760,530 from investment accounts, $520,000 from accumulated rental income. Total liquid assets, $2,988,530. Robert Chen confirmed in writing that I had full legal right to sell the house. Papers were drawn up. The Morrisons were ready. All that remained was setting the closing date and watching Daniel and Melissa's world collapse. November 28th, Thanksgiving. I cooked for 4 days straight. Turkey with Thomas's secret herb rub. Cornbread dressing from my great-grandmother's recipe. Mac and cheese with 5 cheeses. Collard greens with ham hocks and a touch of vinegar. Candied yams with pecans and brown sugar. Green bean casserole. Sweet potato pie with fresh whipped cream. Coconut cake with 7-minute frosting. I invited Dorothy, my neighbor from 2 doors down, and Margaret and Susan, my friends from the library. Daniel and Melissa arrived at 3 p.m. with Sophie and Max. Melissa wore a designer dress that probably cost $600. She photographed every dish for her social media, arranging plates artfully. "This looks so authentic, Victoria," she said, her phone camera clicking constantly. Very traditional Southern. We sat down to eat. I said grace, something about being thankful for truth, for clarity, for the people who show you exactly who they are, so you can make informed decisions. Daniel ate 3 plates, just like he used to as a boy. "Mom, sorry, Aunt Vicky, this is incredible. This is the food I grew up with. I'm really gonna miss your cooking." I set down my fork. "What will you miss?" Daniel looked confused. "What do you mean?" "You said you'll miss my cooking. What else will you miss about me?" Daniel shifted uncomfortably. "I mean everything. You, this house, our talks. But it's time, right? Time for everyone to have appropriate space and independence." "Independence," I repeated. Melissa jumped in brightly. "Victoria, Daniel and I were thinking, once you're settled at Magnolia Gardens, we should definitely do monthly dinners. Keep the family tradition alive. Monthly dinners at an assisted living facility. Or we could cook," Melissa added. "I've been learning some amazing plant-based recipes that are—" "When's your move-in date?" I interrupted. "For the house?" Melissa's eyes lit up. "Probably mid-January. The designer can start right after New Year's. We're thinking of gutting the kitchen first. Very coastal modern. White oak cabinets, quartz counters, maybe a marble backsplash." "You're gutting my kitchen." "Well, it needs modernizing," Melissa said. "The cabinets are very dated." "Those cabinets," I said quietly, "were custom built by Thomas in 1987. He designed them himself. Every detail." Awkward silence settled over the table. Dorothy cleared her throat. "Victoria, this pie is absolutely heavenly. It's my great-great-grandmother's recipe. 5 generations. Melissa, would you like the recipe?" Melissa smiled politely. "That's sweet, but I don't really bake. Too much processed sugar." 5 generations of women's love and tradition dismissed as processed sugar. I stood up. "I have an announcement to make." Everyone looked at me. "I've made my decision about my housing situation, and I wanted you all to hear it together." Daniel sat up straighter, looking relieved. "Did you decide on Magnolia Gardens? They have great financing options." "No," I said clearly. "I found somewhere else, somewhere perfect for this next chapter of my life." "Oh," Melissa said, curiosity and something else in her voice. "Is it another community? There's one near Kiowa that's supposed to be lovely." "Barcelona," I said. Silence crashed over the table like a wave. "Barcelona," Daniel repeated blankly. "Barcelona, Spain. I've signed a 1-year lease on an apartment in the Gothic Quarter. 3 bedrooms, a balcony overlooking the plaza. Absolutely beautiful." Melissa laughed, actually laughed. "Victoria, that's not realistic. Barcelona is one of the most expensive cities in Europe. You can't possibly afford—" "I can afford it very comfortably," I interrupted. "Thomas left me significantly better off than anyone realized, including me, until recently." Daniel stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language. "Aunt Vicky, what are you talking about? Dad was broke when he died. The medical bills, your father," I said clearly, calmly, "left me $1,050,000 in life insurance, $760,000 in investment accounts, $600,000 in commercial real estate, and a pension of $52,000 per year. He'd been planning and building these assets for 28 years. You could have heard a pin drop. Daniel was doing math in his head, his face going pale. That's over $2 million. $2,988,530 to be exact, I said. Plus my annual pension. Plus the proceeds from this house, which I'm selling. The closing is December 20th. Melissa's face went completely white. You're selling this house? I am. The new owners, Dr. and Mrs. Morrison, take possession January 1st. They're expecting their first child, and they're going to fill this house with love and laughter again. You can't sell this house, Melissa said, her voice rising. It's in Daniel's name. Actually, I can, I said calmly. My attorney, Robert Chen, explained the conditional transfer quite thoroughly. I have every legal right to sell this property. The conditions Thomas specified have not been met, which means I retain full control. Daniel hadn't moved, hadn't spoken. He looked like he might be sick. Aunt Vicky, you're serious. Completely serious. You told me to find my own place. I did. Barcelona. I hope you enjoy your coastal contemporary aesthetic, but you'll need to create it somewhere else. You have until December 31st to vacate. Where are we supposed to go? Melissa's voice was nearly a shriek. Find your own place, I said, echoing her words from 3 weeks ago. I'm sure there are some lovely apartments available. I picked up my purse. Dorothy, Margaret, Susan, thank you so much for coming and sharing this meal with me. Daniel, Melissa, there are plenty of leftovers in the kitchen. I'm going to spend the rest of the evening at Dorothy's house. I walked through my dining room, through the foyer Thomas had restored, out my front door, and I didn't look back. Behind me, I heard Melissa. This can't be happening. This is insane. She can't do this. And Daniel, very quietly, I think she just did. If you feel my words, show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And tell me from which city you belong so I can see how far a woman's impactful voice can reach. Help me build this community so we can bring more truthful stories for you. December 20th arrived cold and clear. I wore my navy suit, the one I'd worn to important library board meetings for years. The Morrisons wore their best clothes. Dr. James in a charcoal suit. Dr. Rachel in a navy maternity dress, her belly round with their daughter due in March. We met at the title company, signed mountains of papers, exchanged pleasantries and promises. The check was handed over. $950,000, minus Maria's commission, left me with $912,000 clear. Dr. Morrison shook my hand warmly. Mrs. Hayes, thank you for choosing us. We promise to love this house the way it deserves to be loved. I know you will, I said, meaning every word. Rachel hugged me carefully, her belly between us. We've decided on names. If our daughter had been a boy, we were going to name him Thomas, after the architect who built such beauty. But since she's a girl, her middle name will be Victoria, after the woman who understood that houses need families who will cherish them. I cried then, but they were good tears, healing tears. I walked out of that title company with a cashier's check for $912,000, bringing my total liquid assets to $3,900,530. At 69 years old, I was a multimillionaire about to start a completely new life in Barcelona. And my nephew still had no comprehension of what had actually happened. Daniel and Melissa moved out December 22nd. I came home from finalizing my international banking to find a note on the kitchen counter. Aunt Vicky, we found a 2-bedroom apartment in West Ashley. We need some time and space to process everything. We'll be in touch. Daniel. No apology, no acknowledgement of the financial abuse, no goodbye to the children, just an address I hadn't asked for. January 5th, the car service arrived at 4 a.m. I'd been awake since 2, sitting in my empty bedroom, my furniture already shipped to storage in Barcelona, my suitcases by the door, taking one last look at the room where I'd loved Thomas, where I'd grieved Emma, where I'd built a life. Dorothy stood on her porch in her bathrobe as I loaded my luggage, tears streaming down her face. You call me the second that plane lands, she said, hugging me so tight I could barely breathe. And you send me pictures of that view every single morning, I promise. Victoria Hayes, you are the strongest woman I have ever known in my entire life. I'm just the most tired woman you know, I said. I'm finally choosing rest over obligation. The drive to Charleston International was quiet. The driver, a kind Haitian man named Philippe, made gentle conversation about the weather and travel. I watched Charleston slip past in the pre-dawn darkness. The city where I'd lived for 43 years, where I'd worked and loved and lost and buried the people I cherished most. I felt nothing but relief and possibility. At the airport, I checked in for my flight. Charleston to Atlanta, Atlanta to Barcelona. Total travel time, 14 hours. The ticket was business class. Catherine had insisted. Mrs. Hayes, you're 69 and flying internationally. Treat yourself properly. The seat reclined into a bed. The flight attendant offered champagne before takeoff. Celebrating something special, ma'am? She asked. My entire future, I said, and I meant it with every cell of my body. January 6th, I landed in Barcelona at 10:15 a.m. local time. The Mediterranean sun hit me like a warm embrace after Charleston's winter. Isabella Martinez was waiting at arrivals, holding a sign that said, "Welcome home, Victoria," with a beautiful hand-drawn heart. She was 58, with silver-streaked dark hair and the warmest smile I'd ever seen. We'd only video chatted twice, but she hugged me like family. "You actually did it," she said. "You actually came." "I actually did," I said, feeling lighter than I had in years. "How are you feeling?" "Terrified, exhilarated, free, confused, alive." "That's exactly the right combination," Isabella laughed. "That's the feeling of choosing yourself. Get very used to it." The drive from the airport to the Gothic Quarter took 40 minutes through streets that looked like they belonged in a dream. Every turn revealed something magical. Ancient stone buildings, tiny cafes with people laughing, flower boxes overflowing with color, the Mediterranean sparkling in the distance. "This is real," I kept asking. "This is actually my life now?" "This is your life now," Isabella kept confirming with a huge smile. My apartment was on the 3rd floor of a building that had stood since the 1500s. Cream-colored stone walls, wrought iron balconies, wooden shutters painted deep green. The landlord, an elderly Catalan couple, Señor and Señora Castellano, met us at the door. "Señora Hayes, bienvenida," Señora Castellano said, kissing both my cheeks in the European way. "Your home is ready for you." Home. The word felt strange and perfect and terrifying. Inside, terracotta tile floors, high ceilings with exposed beams, furniture in warm creams and soft terracottas. But it was the balcony that made me cry. It wrapped around 2 sides of the apartment, overlooking a plaza where children played, and people sat at cafes, and life happened in full, beautiful color. "Oh my God," I whispered, gripping the iron railing. "Yeah," Isabella said, grinning. "That's the Barcelona effect. Welcome home, Victoria." That first night, I sat on my balcony, wrapped in a blanket Thomas and I had bought on our honeymoon, watching the plaza come alive with evening. People laughing, children chasing pigeons, couples holding hands, guitarists playing for coins. My phone buzzed. "Dorothy. Did you make it safe?" "Me, I made it. It's more beautiful than I imagined." "Dorothy, I'm so proud of you I could burst." "Me, thank you for being my friend through absolutely everything." "Dorothy, thank you for showing me it's never too late to save yourself. Now go live that life clean." I set down my phone and opened a bottle of cava, Catalan sparkling wine, that the landlords had left with a note. "To Victoria, may your Barcelona life be filled with joy." I poured a glass, raised it to the Mediterranean evening. "Thomas," I said aloud to the sky, "thank you for seeing what I couldn't see in myself. Thank you for making sure I'd be protected. I'm more than okay. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." The church bell rang in the distance, and I chose to believe it was him answering, telling me he was proud. The first month was harder than I'd expected, but in good ways and challenging ways. Language was my biggest barrier. My high school Spanish helped a little, but Catalan was completely different. Ordering coffee became an anxious adventure. "Un café amb llet, sisplau," I'd say at the bakery, and the woman would respond in rapid Catalan. I'd smile and nod, and sometimes I'd get what I wanted, sometimes something completely different. After 2 weeks of confused transactions, I hired a tutor, a patient university student named Martina, who came 3 times a week. We'd sit on my balcony, and she'd teach me Catalan and Spanish, laughing gently at my pronunciation. "You're doing so well, Señora Victoria. she'd encourage. Better than most Americans who come here. The loneliness surprised me with its timing. Not when I was exploring or unpacking, but in quiet moments. Making dinner for one. Waking up with no one to say good morning to. Realizing I couldn't call Dorothy at midnight because it was only 6 p.m. her time. I missed my library work. Missed the rhythm of helping people find books, the quiet purpose of organizing knowledge, the community of regular patrons. I'd been Mrs. Hayes, the librarian, for 36 years. Now I was just Victoria, and I had to figure out who that was without the roles that had defined me. But there were small victories that felt enormous. Week 3, I successfully ordered groceries at the market using only Catalan. The vendor smiled. Molt bé, señora. Very good. Week 5, my downstairs neighbor, Señora Puig, an 82-year-old widow, knocked on my door. Señora Victoria, we play cards Saturday afternoon in the plaza. You come? I had no idea what card game, but I said yes immediately. It was a Catalan game I'd never heard of, played with a Spanish deck, and I was terrible. Everyone laughed, including me, and Señora Puig patted my hand. You come every week. We teach you. I went back every Saturday, and slowly I got better, and more importantly, I belonged. Week 8. Isabella introduced me to Las Mariposas, her group of expatriate women who met monthly for dinner. There were 6 of them. Isabella Martinez, 58, from Texas, former corporate lawyer. Carmen Rodriguez, 63, from Puerto Rico via New York, retired teacher. Amara Osei, 56, Ghanaian British, artist and sculptor. Patricia Chen, 67, from San Francisco, former tech executive. And now me. We met at Patricia's stunning apartment overlooking the beach. Each woman brought food from her culture or her past. Isabella made Texas chili. Carmen brought mofongo. Amara prepared jollof rice. Victoria, what did you bring? Isabella asked. I'd spent an entire day making my grandmother's mac and cheese, the one with 5 cheeses and a butter cracker crust, and collard greens with ham hocks cooked low and slow. I set down my dishes, suddenly nervous. Southern food. It's what I know. It's my history. The room went quiet as they tasted. Then Patricia said, "Oh my God, Victoria, this is incredible. This mac and cheese is better than anything I've ever had. You need to teach me this recipe," Carmen said. "This is better than my abuela's, and I never thought I'd say that about anyone's cooking." Amara raised her wine glass. To Victoria, who left America, came to Barcelona, and brought the ancestors' cooking with her. We all clinked glasses, and I felt something I hadn't felt in so long. True belonging. These women didn't know me as Daniel's aunt, or Thomas's widow, or Mrs. Hayes the librarian. They knew me as Victoria, the woman brave enough to restart her life at 69. "Tell us your story," Patricia said. "How did you end up here?" So I told them everything. Melissa's ultimatum, Thomas's hidden fortune, the sale, the escape, all of it. When I finished, Isabella was grinning from ear to ear. Carmen was nodding with fierce approval. Amara was taking notes. Patricia was laughing so hard she was crying. "Girl," Patricia said, "you gave them nothing and took everything. That's biblical. That's Red Sea parting, Jericho walls falling level of justice." "It wasn't revenge," I said quietly. "It was survival." "It was both," Isabella said, "and it was absolutely perfect." I started teaching piano again. A flyer in my building lobby. Piano teacher available, beginners to intermediate, children and adults. Reasonable rates. 5 families responded. 8 students total, ages 6 to 15. Spanish, Catalan, Italian, French. 1 American family. Every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, my apartment filled with scales and simple songs and laughter when someone hit the wrong key. "Señora Victoria," said my student Pau, a Catalan boy of 8, "you are very patient. My last teacher got angry when I made mistakes." "Mistakes mean you're learning," I said. "Mistakes mean you're brave enough to try." After he left, I sat at the piano and cried, because I hadn't realized how much I'd missed teaching until I was doing it again, but this time on my own terms. 4 months later, I woke to the sound of seagulls and the smell of coffee from the cafe below my apartment. My morning routine had become sacred. Coffee on the balcony, Catalan lesson with Martina, Walk along the beach from Barcelona to the Olympic port and back. About an hour. Shower, piano practice, lunch with Senora Puig or one of Las Mariposas. My phone rang at 11:32 a.m. Unknown number, but a South Carolina area code. I almost didn't answer, but something made me press accept. Hello? Aunt Vicky, it's Daniel. His voice sounded thin, worn, older than 4 months should have made anyone sound. Please don't hang up. I walked to the balcony, pressed the phone to my ear, looked out at the Mediterranean. I'm listening. God, I don't even know where to start. He laughed, but there was no humor, only pain. Melissa left me. I sat down on my balcony chair. When, 7 weeks ago, March 18th, she packed everything while I was at work and went back to her parents in California. She took Sophie and Max. I'm so sorry, I said, and I meant it. I was sorry for those children. Sorry that Daniel was learning this lesson so painfully. Are you? Because I wouldn't blame you if you weren't. I wouldn't blame you if you never spoke to me again for the rest of your life. The Mediterranean stretched before me, endless and impossibly blue. A sailboat was entering the harbor, life continuing, beautiful and indifferent. What happened, Daniel? The words tumbled out like he'd been holding them in for weeks. We couldn't afford anything. The apartment we found is a 2-bedroom in West Ashley, $1,800 a month. Melissa lasted exactly 7 weeks before she left. She said I wasn't the provider she thought I was marrying. No house, no designer furniture, no Instagram perfect life, no future that looked like what she'd imagined. She told me I'd failed her as a husband and a provider, and then she left. Turns out she never loved me. She loved what she thought I could give her, what she thought I represented. I'm sorry, I said again. Not sorry she was gone, but genuinely sorry my nephew was learning how conditional love could be. Aunt Vicky, I'm in therapy. Real therapy, twice a week. That surprised me. You are? I needed to understand how I became someone who could do what I did to you. How I could stand there and tell the woman who raised me half my childhood to go live in assisted living so my wife could have her aesthetic. How I became that person. And what have you learned? Long silence, then his voice broke. That I took every single thing you ever did for granted. That I confused loving you with owning you. That I never once thought of you as a person with your own life, your own dreams, your own needs and wants. You were just Aunt Vicky. Always there, always supportive, always sacrificing, and I just assumed that's who you were, instead of recognizing that's what you chose to do for people you loved. My throat tightened. I also learned, he continued, that you're the bravest person I know. You sold everything and moved to Barcelona at 69. Most people our parents' age are worried about their medication schedules and doctor's appointments, and you're living in one of the most beautiful cities in Europe, like some kind of international mystery woman. I laughed, despite the tears in my eyes. Is that how you see me now? I see you as someone I clearly never understood. Someone who is stronger and braver and more capable than I ever gave you credit for. Someone who deserved a much better nephew than what I was. Daniel, no. Let me finish, please. I'm not calling to ask you to come back or fix this or bail me out. I'm calling because I miss you. Because I've spent 4 months realizing that I built my entire adult life on the assumption that you'd always be there to catch me when I fell. And I never once asked what that cost you. He paused, and I could hear him crying. And because I want to know if there's any chance, any possibility that someday you could forgive me. Not now. I understand that. But someday. I looked out at the Mediterranean, at the life I'd built from the ashes of betrayal and grief. 4 months ago, I'd been furious, hurt, determined. Now, sitting in the Barcelona sun with the sound of the plaza below, that anger felt like it belonged to someone else, some previous version of me. Daniel, I said carefully, I need you to understand something very clearly. I'm not coming back to save you. I'm not your safety net anymore. I'm not the person who fixes things for you. I know, he said quickly. I would never ask that of you. I wouldn't deserve it. But, I paused. Would you like to visit in May? See what I've built here? Who I'm becoming? Long silence. Then, you'd let me visit? On one condition. You come alone. You come ready to see me, Victoria. Not just Aunt Vicky. Not the person you expect me to be, or need me to be. Just me. I promise, his voice cracked. Thank you. Thank you for giving me a chance I absolutely don't deserve. After we hung up, I sat on my balcony for a long time. Senora Puig appeared on her balcony below, watering her geraniums. Bon dia, Victoria, she called up in Catalan. Tot bé? Yes, I called back. Everything is very good. And it was true. I picked Daniel up at Barcelona airport on a Friday afternoon in May. He came through arrivals looking smaller somehow, thinner, wearing jeans and a plain shirt instead of the designer clothes Melissa had always insisted on. We hugged awkwardly. Hi, Aunt Vicky. Hi, sweetheart. The drive into Barcelona, he stared out the window, like a child seeing the ocean for the first time. This is where you live, he kept saying. This is actually where you live. This is where I live, I confirmed. When we reached my apartment and he stepped onto the balcony, he stood completely still for a full minute, just looking. Aunt Vicky, he finally said, this is... I don't even have words. Beautiful works, I said. You did this. You built this life for yourself. I did. That evening I took him to dinner with Las Mariposas at Carmen's apartment. I'd warned him they might be protective of me. I hadn't warned him exactly how protective. Isabella answered the door and looked Daniel up and down like she was evaluating merchandise. So, you're the nephew. Yes, ma'am. The one who tried to warehouse his aunt so his Instagram wife could have white countertops and a coastal aesthetic. Daniel swallowed hard. Yes, ma'am. That was me. Come in, Isabella said. We probably won't bite you. Much. The interrogation lasted through appetizers. Patricia, what are you doing to make this right, to actually repair the damage you caused? Daniel, therapy twice a week. Learning to understand myself and be better. That's all I can do. Amara, you understand what you put her through, what you took from her. Daniel looked at me, then back at Amara. I'm starting to. I don't think I'll ever fully understand the depth of it, but I'm trying to learn. Carmen, why should we believe you've changed? Why should we trust that you're not just here because you want something? Daniel looked at me again. Because she gave me a chance I don't deserve, and I'm not going to waste it. Because I love her and I've been a terrible nephew, and I'm trying to learn how to be better. Isabella leaned back in her chair. Okay, you can stay. After dinner, while Daniel and Patricia were doing dishes, Patricia had insisted, I heard her say quietly, your aunt is a queen. She rebuilt her entire life at 69 in a foreign country where she didn't speak the language. Do you understand how much strength and courage that takes? I'm starting to, Daniel said quietly. Good, because if you hurt her again, we know people. Barcelona is smaller than you think. Are you threatening me? Daniel asked, half laughing. I'm educating you, Patricia said. Saturday morning we walked along the beach to the Olympic port. The Mediterranean sparkled under spring sun. Families played in the sand. Couples walked hand in hand. Street performers played music. Aunt Vicky, can I ask you something? Of course. When did you find out about the money? About Uncle Thomas's planning? November 3rd, the morning Melissa told me to find my own place. I was planning my escape, I said simply. Like a spy, he said. Like someone surviving, I corrected. We walked in silence for a while. Then Daniel said, Tell me about Uncle Thomas. The real story, everything. I remember him being distant when I was young. Then he got better. Then he got sick. But I never understood the whole story. So I told him everything. About losing Emma in a car accident when she was 12. How it destroyed Thomas. How he disappeared into depression for years. How he finally clawed his way back with therapy and medication and determination. How he spent his last good years making sure I'd be protected. He knew, I said. Somehow, even dying, he knew I might need a way out someday. And he gave it to me. Daniel stopped walking, turned to face the sea. His shoulders shook. I'm crying again, he said. I've cried more in the last 5 months than my entire previous life. Crying means you're feeling, I said. Feeling means you're healing. Did I destroy us? He asked, turning to me. You and me? Our relationship? I thought about it, really considered the question. No, I said finally. You damaged it severely, but damage can be repaired if both people are willing to do the work. I want to, he said, tears on his face. I want my aunt back. Not the woman who sacrificed everything for me without question. The woman standing here who chose herself, who built this incredible life. I want to know her. We hugged then, really hugged, for the first time in years. I'm so proud of you, he whispered. I'm so incredibly proud of you, Aunt Vicky. Daniel's last evening in Barcelona, we sat on my balcony watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold and pink. I have something for you, he said, pulling an envelope from his jacket. From the Morrisons. They asked me to give it to you. Inside was a letter and photos. The photos showed a newborn baby girl with a tiny pink bow, swaddled in soft blankets. The letter read, Dear Mrs. Hayes, our daughter was born March 23rd at 2:11 a.m. We named her Charlotte Victoria Morrison. We wanted you to know that every night when we put our daughter to bed in the nursery, your old bedroom, we tell her about the strong woman who built this home with love, and then had the courage to let it go so another family could love it. We tell her about Thomas, the architect who created beauty. We tell her about second chances, and choosing yourself, and building the life you deserve. Your house is raising another generation, and that generation will know your name and your story. With gratitude and love, Dr. James, Dr. Rachel, and Charlotte Victoria Morrison. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe through my tears. Just held the photo of this baby girl, who carried my name. They named their daughter after you, Daniel said quietly. They did. That's your legacy, Aunt Vicky. Not the house, not even the money. Them. That baby. This life you've built. Me, trying to become a better man because of your example. That's what you leave behind. We sat in silence as stars appeared over Barcelona. I love you, Aunt Vicky, Daniel said. I know I did an absolutely terrible job of showing it for a long time, but I do. I always have, even when I was too selfish to act like it. I love you too, sweetheart. Always. Will you ever come back to America? He asked. I don't know, I said honestly. This feels like home now in a way Charleston hasn't felt like home in years. Then I'll visit, he said. Every few months, if that's okay. That's more than okay, I said. 1 year later, I woke to my alarm. Something I rarely needed anymore. Today was special. 1 year since Charlotte Victoria Morrison was born. 1 year since I'd fully embraced this new life. I made coffee and carried it to my balcony. The Mediterranean was calm, reflecting the golden dawn. A cruise ship was entering the port, elegant and slow. My phone buzzed with messages. Dorothy, happy 1 year anniversary of Charlotte's birth and your Barcelona life. So proud of you every single day. Isabella, Las Mariposas brunch at 11. We're celebrating you. Daniel, 1 year, Aunt Vicky. You did it. You're thriving. Love you so much. And a video message from Rachel Morrison, a toddler with dark curls smashing a cupcake into her face, frosting everywhere. Happy birthday, Charlotte Victoria. Say hi to Senora Victoria in Spain. The baby waved sticky hands at the camera and sent something that sounded like Toria. Not my biological grandchild, but carrying my name, my story, my legacy of choosing yourself. I'd been in Barcelona for 1 year and 5 days. In that time, I'd become conversational in Catalan and Spanish, taught piano to 14 students, joined a watercolor painting class taught by a French artist named Michel, walked over 800 miles along the beach and through Gothic quarter streets, made 6 true friends and knew the real me, rebuilt my relationship with Daniel into something healthier and more honest, started writing a memoir tentatively titled Finding My Own Place, and most importantly, learned exactly who Victoria Hayes was when she wasn't performing roles for other people. I was even dating someone, carefully and slowly. Senor Castellano's brother, Miguel, 71, a widower, a retired professor of literature. Once a week, we had dinner at a little restaurant near the beach. We talked about books, about our late spouses, about grief and second chances. He taught me about Catalan poetry. I taught him to make cornbread. It was comfortable, easy. No pressure to be anything but ourselves. Daniel visited every 3 months like clockwork. He'd met someone, a librarian named Sandra, who reminded him of me. His words, not mine. They were taking it very slow. He was learning how to be in a healthy relationship. Melissa had remarried, a venture capitalist, in Silicon Valley. Daniel showed me the announcement on social media with a laughing emoji. We were both completely free of her. My liquid assets had grown to $4,200,000 through conservative investments and the strength of the market. I lived on $95,000 annually, pension plus investment income, and still saved $70,000 a year. I'd purchased my apartment in September for €680,000, about $730,000, paid in cash. At 70 years old, I owned a 3-bedroom apartment in Barcelona's Gothic quarter outright, had no debt whatsoever, and woke up every morning to a view that made me grateful to be alive. But the money was never the victory, never the point. The victory was this. I'd spent 69 years being what everyone needed. The devoted wife who endured, the dedicated librarian, the sacrificing aunt, the convenient woman who never complained or asked for anything. And then one November morning, someone told me to find my own place, meaning to get out of their way. So I did, but not in the way they imagined, not in some corner designated for old women who'd served their purpose. I found my own place in Barcelona, but more importantly, I found it in my own heart, my own strength, my own truth. I set down my coffee and opened my laptop. My memoir was at 233 pages. I read the final paragraph I'd written the night before. They told me to find my own place, expecting me to shrink into whatever small space they were willing to give me. Instead, I found myself on the Mediterranean coast, living proof that it's never too late to choose your own happiness, your own life, your own truth. At 69, I learned that find your own place was the best advice anyone ever gave me, even though they meant it as dismissal. I just didn't find my place where they expected or wanted. My place wasn't in assisted living or some small apartment where I'd be convenient and out of the way. But more than that, it was in my own power, my own choices, my own freedom. And to every woman who's been told she's too old, too much, too inconvenient, who's been made to feel like her time has passed, find your own place. It might just be paradise, or it might be something even better. It might be yourself. I closed the laptop and walked to the balcony railing. A text from Miguel. Coffee at noon? I bring ensaimadas. Perfect, I texted back. See you then. Below, the plaza was coming alive with morning. Children heading to school, elderly neighbors sitting on benches, the flower vendor setting up her stall, tourists with cameras taking photos of the ancient architecture. Barcelona going about its beautiful, vibrant day. And Victoria Hayes, former librarian, widow, aunt, and now international woman of possibility, raised her coffee cup to the sunrise. To finding your own place, I said aloud to the morning, wherever and whatever that may be. The Mediterranean breeze answered, warm on my face, carrying the scent of salt and freedom and possibility. I was 70 years old. I was exactly where I belonged. I was home. This story is dedicated to every woman who's been told she's past her prime, too old to start over, should be grateful for whatever small space she's given. You are never too old to choose yourself. You are never too late to start over. You are never too much or too inconvenient. Find your own place. It's waiting for you. If this story touched you, please share it with a woman who needs to hear it, and tell me from which city you belong, so I can see how far a woman's impactful voice can reach. Help me build this community so we can bring more truthful stories for you, because our stories matter. Our voices matter. We matter.